Let me say something that nobody in the financial mainstream media in Australia talks about. What's happening in the Australian real estate right now is not a policy accident. It is not an overreaction. It is not a clumsy governance by well-meaning politicians who get economics slightly wrong. It's a deliberate, concentrated, and masterfully executed transfer of wealth from the middle class to the banks and asset holding elite. And it is being done by your full corporation because most people cannot see the mechanism while they are living in it. Let me show you the mechanism. Step 1, create the pressure. For years, Australian banks have lent aggressively to the middle class property investors. They encourage negative gearing strategies. They approve loans at low rates, told borrowers the market always goes up, and built an entire generation of middle-class Australians whose entire retirement plan sat inside 1 or 2 investment properties. This was not generosity. This was a setup. When you borrow $100,000 from the bank to buy an investment property, you do not own that property. The bank owns it. You own the debt. And as long as you're servicing the debt on a working salary, you are the most productive asset the bank has ever had. A liable interest generating machine running for 25 to 30 years. The middle class was not building wealth. It was building the bank's income stream and calling it their own. Step 2, squeeze the returns. Once enough middle class Australians were fully leveraged into property, the government became systematically dismantling the tax structures that made these investments viable. Negative gearing, the mechanism that allowed investors to offset losses against income, is being eliminated for existing properties from July 2027. This does not hurt the wealthy. The wealthy do not need negative gearing. They buy assets that generate positive cash flow from day one, with structure that protect them regardless of tax policy. Negative gearing was a tool for the middle class, the person with 1 or 2 properties, and a salaried job. This tool is now being removed. The 50% capital gains tax discount, the mechanism that made exit from the property genuinely profitable, is being replaced with a 30% capital gains tax regime on an inflation index model. Again, this does not hurt the institutional investors. This hurts the individual investors who bought a unit in Melbourne and plan to sell it and retire in 10 years. The government's just changed the rules of the game after millions of middle-class Australians already placed their bets. Step 3, crash the market on schedule. This is where it gets surgical. When negative gearing disappears and capital gains tax increases, investor demand on existing properties drops sharply. Supply increases as investors exit. Prices soften. In some markets, they fall. Who benefits when the prices fall? Not the middle class investors who bought at peak value. Not the landlord whose rental yield has been compressed. The bank benefits because the bank holds the mortgage. And when the property prices fall, highly leveraged investors are forced to make a choice: hold at the loss, sell at the loss, or refinance at worse terms. Every one of these options puts money in the bank's hands and risk onto the investor's balance sheet. And then this is the part that requires tension. The large institutional funds, the REITs, the family offices of the truly wealthy step in as buyers at distressed prices. At the bottom of that middle class investors were forced to create by selling. This is how wealth concentrates, not through market crashes, through engineered corrections that the middle class funds on the way down and the elite capitalize on at the bottom. Step 4, lock the exits. The retroactive expansion of capital gains tax obligations back to 2006 for foreign residents is not a revenue measure. The revenue it generates is relatively modest in the context of a federal budget. It is a signal. It tells every investor in Australia the rules you planned no longer exist. A government willing to reach 20 years into your financial history today is capable of reaching further tomorrow. That your money is not safe here in the way you believe it was. And when that signal causes capitals to freeze, when investors stop buying, stop reinvesting, stop extending their exposure, prices fall further. More middle-class investors are trapped. More distressed sellers create buying opportunities for institutional capital. The exit was locked before most people realized they needed one. Step 5. Who is watching all this happen? The banks know exactly what they're doing. They built the exposure, they modeled the scenarios, they know precisely what happens to a leveraged investor when rates stay elevated and tax incentives disappear simultaneously. They have stress tested these portfolios. They have made their calculations. The government knows. Treasury briefed them on the distributional consequences of every single one of these policy changes. When you eliminate negative gearing and raise capital gains tax, you know which investor class gets hurt. That information was on every brief that went to the minister. The question is not whether they knew. The question is why they did it anyway. And the answer, where you follow the money, is never complicated. Middle-class debt servicing is a revenue stream. Distressed asset prices are a buying opportunity. Concentrated wealth always benefits from the orderly unwinding of distributed wealth as long as the process happens slowly enough that nobody connects the steps. What this means for you right now. If you're a middle-class Australian investor with 1 or 2 properties, a mortgage, and a retirement plan built around capital growth and rental income, you are inside this mechanism. You are not protected by it. You are the feedstock. The question is not whether this is fair. It is not. The question is what you do with the time you have left before the next step lands. I'm not here to offer you outrage. Outrage does not protect your capital. I'm here to offer you an alternative. Dubai is not a consolation prize. It is a structural escape. Dubai's real estate framework was not built to extract wealth from the middle class. It was built to extract capital from exactly the kind of investor Australia is now pushing away. Zero capital gains tax, not just low, zero. No mechanism exists by which a government reaches back into your returns after the fact. Zero income tax on rental earnings. What your property generates, you keep entirely. Gross rental yields of 8 to 9%, meaning your investment is cash flow positive from the beginning with no need for tax subsidies to make the numbers work. Full foreign freehold ownership in designated zones. Your name on the title, your asset, no approval process, no nationality-based restrictions. A golden visa residency for investors and their families. Property in Dubai is not just a financial asset. It is a second home, a genuine alternative base, a hedge against the political risk of being entirely dependent on one government's next budget night. And critically, no coordinated bank government mechanism designed to strip the middle class. Because Dubai's economic model depends on attracting international capital that other governments are systematically destroying. Your interests and Dubai's interests are aligned. That alignment does not exist in Australia right now. You have 2 calls to make. The first one is to your relatives or friends in Canada or the UK. Ask them how their property investments are performing. Ask them what they think of the government that has promised to protect housing affordability. Ask them what they wish they had done in 2021. The second call is to me. I specialize in helping Australian investors who built their financial security in Australia and are now watching the rules change around them, reposition capital into Dubai real estate with clarity, confidence, and full transparency on the process. The wealth transfer is underway. The only question is which side of it you want to end up. The Australians who move their capital to Dubai in the next 18 months will look back at this moment the way Canadian investors who didn't move look back on 2021, except with relief instead of regret. The window is open, the mechanism is in motion, and you know exactly how it works. Reach out to me directly. Jay from Harmony Heights. Let's make sure your wealth survives what is coming.